Smart 24, driving business.
Hello there, and welcome to yet another episode of Fat Talks. Yes, we are live on Smart 24. My name is Lynn Komjisha. Yes, it's been a minute. Happy New Year. I'm glad to see you all and glad you're part of us yet again. And we get to speak ethics and integrity. We get to speak things that are the backbone of who we are at Fat Talks. And today I'll be very honored. I am very honored, if I must emphasize, that I'm sitting next to Mr. Chibuka Ronald Bosa. He told me before we sat down that most of you who've joined us are very familiar with the name Ronald Bosa. So we shall be sticking to that as the conversation goes on. Mr. Chibuka, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And he is the president of the Human Resource Managers Association of Uganda. And when you speak ethics and we have a human resource managers president, then you know we are talking with the right person. Once again, I welcome you.
Thank you so much.
Before we get into the conversation of the day, allow me take us through a bit of what we are working on as Fidelis Leadership Institute. We are encouraging you to be part of our FAT Leadership Fellowship. Those of you who know about it, as being faithful, available, and teachable. So we have a leadership fellowship that we have every year. Applications are now open. I want to urge you that if you're ready to lead with integrity, what we're talking about today, and purpose, our fellowship is designed to cultivate leaders who are faithful to their core values and committed to making a difference in their communities. If you're looking to have leaders that are faithful, available, and teachable, more importantly, ethical, and have integrity at the core of their values, we are the people. So apply today. What you do, just go to our FAT Leadership Fellowship that is on the Fidelis Leadership website. You'll find all the details on our website there, and you will get to know more on what is going on at the Fidelis Leadership Institute. Also, we are working on the public interest litigation, a society safeguard for human rights. If you have no idea, join us and be part of this conversation. We are advancing human rights and accountability in Uganda. That is the theme on Friday, 21st of February, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So also go to our website. You'll find all these details there. Now, Mr. Ron, allow me first correct this. People want to say Mr. Ronald Bosa, but it's wrong. You say Mr. Chibuka. So for purpose of our viewers and us not being misled, let's just say Ronald Bosa. As the president of Human Resources Managers of Uganda, I'm sure you speak ethics almost every day. It's a gospel. Why is ethics important? And do people actually understand what it means to be ethical at work, in life itself?
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's a pleasure to be on this show. Allow me to thank Fidelis Leadership Institute in a special way for taking lead in the areas that actually consume a lot of our time as people who manage human resources at places of work. One of the things that I will talk about when we talk about ethics and leadership is that when we talk about ethics and ethical leadership, most people have summarized it easily by saying ethics is about doing the right thing no matter the circumstances. And usually that is the definition of who a leader is. A leader is somebody who will be able to look at the circumstances, look at the situation, look at the people, look at the resources, look at the information available, and in the midst of all that resource envelope, they are able to say this is the right thing to do at any one time. Whenever you look for the right thing, it will always be there. And your call as a leader, as somebody, and the leader is somebody who is responsible for others. So I usually share and I say, when we talk about leadership, sometimes leadership is about, when you talk about ethics, it's about equal opportunity. In your position that you've been entrusted, wherever you are, leading other people, be it a personal business, be it a government department, be it a private enterprise. When you are entrusted with the responsibility to lead other people, do you lead with fairness? Do you give everybody equal opportunity? So all those things that go with the effective communication come in when we talk about leadership. Then the issue of diversity. How do you navigate issues of diversity when you are working with other people? Issues of inclusion. How inclusive are you when you are looking at what you do? How opportunities, when you are in the place of work, normally you are making decisions about how different things must happen. But are you fair? Whenever we talk about issues of distributive justice, are you being able to give everybody what is due to them based on the effort they put in? We usually talk about performance management. Is it done in a fair way? We talk about transparency. Are you transparent the way you do your things? All those are areas of ethics. But other people say that when you talk about ethics, ethics is what you do when the door is closed should be the same thing you do when the door is open.
Yeah, I think one gentleman called Lewis said that integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. And I think if merged with ethics, I pretty much understand that's what it means. So you've briefly, given us characteristics of an ethical leader.
Yes.
And how they go about their leadership. The question here would be for you, Ronald Bossa. How do you embody it in your daily life? You as you. I want to just
to
a little bit into you.
I like that.
How do you embody ethics
like
and
that.
integrity
in
your daily life?
I think one of the things when we go practical in what happens is that if you are somebody who is a leader, you make the right commitments.
Right.
You don't commit to what you will not do.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, there is a bigger gallery. There's a lot of appreciation. People are watching. So you do what you said you will do. And that is one of the measures. But we also know that as a part of everyday life, we always face challenges.
Right.
And some of the challenges have to be with the choices that organizations make. Today, you have to deal with are you pushing for what the workers are interested in, or you are pushing profit? And whenever you push profit, you may find that there is always a thin line.
A thin line, yes.
And you as a leader, you should be able to navigate and do the right thing, even when you must look at the different stakeholders, because it's about making sure that you understand the interests, you understand the concerns, you understand the fears, the expectations of the different people in your ecosystem. When you understand what are they trying to do, how are they trying to get it, but through which means you are able to relate better. And when you relate better, you are somehow elevated to another level. You're on the high road. And then also one of the things that I have had the opportunity to be part of is encouraging people to speak up. Because if you don't have an environment where people are free to speak up, I usually talk about the concept of psychological safety.
Right. It's an interesting one.
Psychological safety is where people feel free to come in the space and say, you know what, I don't agree, and these are the reasons. But most of the places where we've worked, you may find that is lacking.
Absolutely.
One of the things you would look at to know that at a workplace there is no psychological safety is if there is a meeting after the meeting.
Usually it is in the corridors.
Yeah, because if there is a meeting after the meeting,
Yeah.
it means that people did not agree.
Sure.
And then you, who is trying to push for an ethical work environment, you see the challenge you are dealing with. You have subcultures and subcultures.
Absolutely.
That's why the issue of now values comes in.
Aha! I like that you bring it up because it was really tickling my mind. When you use, because integrity, if you look at most company objectives and what is it called? Their objectives and their values,
yes.
you find integrity. And I know integrity is a core value of many organizations and personalities.
Yes.
The question here is, in the event that I'm not, I do not have integrity as part of my values, and I am positioned in a company that screams integrity, what is the interchange? What is the how do we interlink the two? We have a leader who doesn't care about much of integrity, but then the company values embody integrity. As human resource, you're in that space, you're in that same company. How do you deal with that?
I think in the workspace, two things happen. Before we even go to the carrots and sticks, maybe let me first talk about a value. So what a value is.
Yes.
You know, when you talk about a value is like a motivational state of being that lies dormant within an individual.
Absolutely.
Until it is reawakened by
Until
an
it is tickled.
external stimulant. That is a value. You only know so much how much you care about a value, about something, then you know. And that's why normally, because to understand the concept of values, then you bring it towards an institution and an organization.
Okay.
Usually an institution is about values. There are certain things that are non-negotiables.
Yes.
And we've seen that most organizations have what they call workplace policies. And the breach of core values is always one of the reasons why somebody can be told to leave.
Absolutely.
What doesn't happen is to define what upholding the core values is to the letter. And then it becomes a very difficult discussion to tell somebody you breached this, you didn't breach that. But they are signs.
Ethical dilemmas.
They are signs that you can look at. So when we go back to the issue of integrity is may not necessarily be something you can touch.
Yeah.
But it's like a mirror. You are able to look through and say, okay, the decisions that I made yesterday, today, or the decision I'm about to make, is it fair to everybody involved? Is it the right thing to do? Am I doing it transparently?
Right.
And what are the reasons? If you can't tick all the areas, it is always important to go back and ask yourself what could be wrong. And that's what usually happens. You need to go back and ask yourself, if I do this particular thing, for example, somebody is supposed to is due maybe for a promotion, and that person, for one reason or the other, the information that has been brought before you is suggesting otherwise. Then they tell you, but this person you are about to give a promotion, there is information 1, 2, 3, 4. The issues become, how much time do you have? Sometimes you need to take a step back and say, okay, this is the information that I have. Do I act immediately? Do I wait a little? You get those are some of the things that you deal with.
Oh, yeah.
Timing of decisions.
I
Sometimes
see.
the lawyers sometimes say justice denied is
You see, you bring out something very interesting.
justice delayed is justice denied.
I see a war between self-awareness and being able to
self-monitoring and self-awareness.
Exactly. Deeper into this. When you think integrity, you think it's just basic, but it's deeper than this, because I see us getting into self-awareness and self-monitoring and being around, being able to monitor the surrounding and reading the room and all these things. But quickly, I don't want us to be caught up by time. In your experience, do you think ethical leadership is becoming harder in today's world?
Yes, and yes, because the pressure to deliver results. Sometimes people overlook the softer aspects of the environment, and these are the things sometimes that matter most.
Okay.
The pressure to deliver results is there, and people say, okay, while I know the right thing to do, the amount of time that I have may not be enough. So you say, okay, what? But we also know that the environment that we are surrounded with, that's why this conversation is pertinent at this point in time, is that scrutiny. There is a higher level of scrutiny today more than ever before, because the people we are dealing with are more knowledgeable. If you are even talking about the customers, they are more knowledgeable, they have options. The whole idea of democratization of services that were previously a privilege of the elite means that you have more people who are much. Technology has made it possible for people to be able to have a lot of information than previously. So you are, and they'll come and tell you, but we are going to be having this interview, but we feel the process is not okay.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, what do we do?
Right.
Because people come when they are well informed. So it goes back to what we do, but also because of the environment.
Yes.
We are even going into now designing tests. There are integrated tests on the market.
Right.
So it's possible to administer a test, and the test will give you results, and you're able to tell that this person, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're at 8, they're at 9, they're at 7. We just don't invest enough time in the process of attracting talent, but also in the process of elevating people to the next level. You can actually administer behavioral tests that can help you discern how somebody scores on integrity. All this information is available.
That's really good. I hope our viewers, you're aware of that. And I would encourage you to take as many tests as possible of yourself. Because oftentimes, I believe you will agree with me, that the more you test yourself on various aspects of life, on human resource, concepts and ABCD, I think you would be best placed to, land yourself a job or something. Because once you get into interviews, then you remember you went through a certain test that is relevant.
Interestingly, even if you did a series of tests, you can still
fail.
The tests that are designed today can still plot you.
Oh.
You can still be plotted where exactly you are, because the questions are not as direct as one would imagine. So they still ask you, if you answer this question like this, and then you answer a related question differently, they'll give you a third question to cross-check whether you are the same person responding.
Anyway,
so artificial intelligence has taken us to levels where it is very, very possible.
I was going to be carried away and ask artificial intelligence in human resource management, but that's a topic for another day. Let's talk about, we're still thinking of, talking ethical leadership. And we know most of our leaders oftentimes fail ethically. And this often leads to public scandals, if you've noticed. And how can organizations build strong ethical cultures to prevent these public scandals? More importantly, how do we protect images of different organizations or even personalities?
I think it starts with the self-management. As an individual, you have certain standards, whereas organizations can have to look at the HR, the our workplace, do they pick these constructs? We have to have very clear communication protocols in our organizations. I talked about the tests, that's another thing. But also, as we do our workplaces, whistleblowing. The viewers may want to actually be made aware that we act on whistleblowing.
On whistleblowing, yes.
So,
and they might just know about it because of the corruption scandals that have rocked our country.
Exactly.
And they think it's just something we do on the low, but
exactly.
It's such a big deal.
Also, creating an environment where we allow people to speak up, but speaking up responsibly. Not speaking behind what? Behind the curtains. I think those are things that we need to look at. We need to look at the entire policy environment in terms of the code of conduct. Any place of work that employs more than 3-4 people must have a very clear code of conduct in terms of what is expected, what is not expected, and when you find yourself in conflict, what do you do? One of the biggest challenges that we have found is the issue of conflict of interest. You may find that in the decisions that are happening at the workplace, you are also partly having an interest in what is happening, but you don't declare. So every other meeting, for example, in most of the meetings I've had opportunity to be part of, you ask people to declare if anybody has a conflict. Even if it is interviews and you're conducting interviews for employment, you should be able to declare conflict.
Right.
And say, such that should issues come up later, they tell you, but you declared here that you are not conflicted. They are able to stick. Right. When potential and they do the right thing. When we are rewarding people at the end of the year and we are rewarding people at the end of 5 years, we are recognizing best performers. Do our reward mechanisms also reward people who have upheld core values? Most of them tend to focus more on the tangibles, the sales, the targets, etc. But we need to look at those aspects. If example of marriage, you can't call it the organization of marriage. It's an institution.
It's an institution.
Meaning that it has values that even somebody who has gone through a very painful divorce, if you had a guide and you are asking people who wants this institution to go away, they will say, wait a minute. Because they know it lives for bigger ideals.
Absolutely.
And the call that we have is to make sure that we move our organizations into that space where people are able, and when they join, they go through the proper orientation and induction,
right,
such that they are able to pick what it is that is expected as we weed out the outliers.
Right. If you've just joined us, thank you very much. You are watching Fast Talks here on Smart 24 TV, and we are talking leading with integrity, the power of ethical decision making in today's world. We know how that is and how tough it is. We often hear Ronald Bosa that we hear people always, speaking. Doing the right thing is very important. Do the right thing. Always do the right thing. Despite it all, do the right thing. But in reality, we know that leadership comes with gray areas. And the question here is, how do we navigate these tough ethical dilemmas?
And I thank you for the question. And I think the gray areas, you're right. And that's what makes a leader. What is interesting is that every profession you start with, the higher you go through the ranks, the more you accumulate experience,
the tougher it becomes.
You stop doing what you used to do, other people do what you used to do, then for you, you become a leader.
Yeah.
So when you become a leader and you are faced with those kind of challenges, it's just by leading by example. You must know who are the people. In most cases, any organization or an institution has a vision bearer.
Yes.
Now, the vision bearer, if you look at the characteristics of the vision bearer, in most cases, they embody the kind of values
of the company.
That's why you cannot talk about ethics and you don't talk about what? And you don't talk about... And people are always pressured. People say, okay, do the right thing. But that's why people tell you leadership is situational. They tell you, no, you do the right thing only when. But for me, I would say, do the right thing no matter. Why? Because you'll be judged still. Regardless. The interesting thing, if you don't do the right thing, you will forget.
Yeah.
You will forget along the way what... Because at the end of the day, you took a decision to go through a specific scenario that you are faced with. But true leadership transcends that and goes into doing things right, which is the management. Doing the right thing is leadership. Doing things right is management. And most people stop at doing
the right thing.
The right thing. Doing the right thing, doing things right. Doing things right is management. Doing the right thing is leadership. And leadership is interesting because at the end of the day, you have to know that whatever you do, there will be people who will be affected by whatever decision that is made. And when you are aware about that, it empowers you to be able to do the right thing. Because at the end of the day, it will be the one that will remain. It will be the one that will actually, because these other things will go. You will forget, they will go, people will come and go. That's the sad reality of life. You may have your institution, you may have your organization, you may have your business, people will come and go, but what remains is always the question. What remains is what you believe in, or is what is long term. If we can train our people to always think long term, there would be effects that would come with the ethical dilemmas that we find today. The integrity issues that we deal with wouldn't be there, or you'd have minimized the would be impact because people are thinking long term. But most people, the reason why we get ethical dilemmas is they are thinking about today.
Now.
I
like that you bring that up.
And the immediate challenge they're trying to solve.
Because it brings out the issue of pressure, life pressures. And we see this common with young professionals. And we know that there is under pressure to play the game, if you know what I mean, rather than stick to their values. So all the time they're like, but you see, I have to do this. I need to achieve this. I need to, if I don't do this, then I will lose my job. Maybe I won't make it, you know. How can they build ethical decision-making skills early in their careers?
Every time I've had an opportunity, even the time I've spent also talking to young professionals, even at the university, I just tell them that there are certain things that are fundamentals of life. Number one is that there's nothing free in life. The moment you take that as your value, that there's nothing for free, that for everything that you need in life, you can get, but you should be ready to pay the price.
That's right.
Then you come out differently. The other advice I usually also give and tell whenever I have that time is to say, there are no shortcuts. Try to avoid shortcuts. There will always be a shortcut.
Well,
you are given an assignment, but you look at the shortcut, and then the other challenge, which is I'm seeing it today, people want to be famous. People want to be famous, and you know, being famous is a process. Eh?
It's a struggle.
You know, you don't you wake up one day and say, you know, for me, I want to be famous. I want to be a brand. And at the end of the day, we see what is happening. We can see what is happening on all the social media, the TikTok and all those. But at the end of the day, one or two things come to mind. That you need to stop thinking about being famous or being a brand to actually doing the right things and doing things that are significant. We need to build the values of hard work. We need to build the values that give the people we spend a lot of time with, who are the young professionals, that there are more people who are willing to take you to the next level if you are doing the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing is very, very painful. And because of that, people don't want to go through it. But I also give them wise counsel that usually the experiences that you go through as a young person, they shape the kind of adult that you finally become.
Absolutely.
So if you avoid going through all that, what happens is that at the end of the day, you will be that kind of person who doesn't have a home. You'll be moving from place to place because you don't have identity.
Yeah.
Your identity is to be great, but you don't know how.
And I think young professionals miss out on the fact that consistency is key. Because then we can tell your trend. We know who you are by the things you do and
exactly.
how often
being known by works.
And how often you do them and the quality of the things that you do. Because then can we know that, oh, this is actually Ronald Bosa and these are his values and this is what he stands for. This is what he represents. But until then, you will. I have a friend who usually calls it gallivanting. You're going to be all over the place, gallivanting here and there, and it doesn't help much. You lose value as a young professional. I cannot talk about young professionals and not talk about the issue of AI.
Yes.
And so with the rise of AI, automation, and globalization, do you think ethical leadership is evolving? And how should we prepare, or how should leaders prepare for new ethical challenges that are, all these present?
I think one of the biggest dilemma is on privacy. I think what technology has done, it has eroded privacy.
Right.
The right to information, the whole idea about the human rights movement. But we also know that because people are more knowledgeable than they were before, the boundaries of what is ethical, the definition of what is ethical and what is not ethical, is kind of a moving dice.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then depending on who is defining it and when they are defining it, people will tend to do what is convenient. The whole thing that we were talking about, the young professionals, doing what is convenient may not be the right thing. Sure. Also doing what everybody else is doing
does not mean you're doing the right thing.
Does not mean that you're doing the right thing. Yeah. So that is the space. And there is a temptation to go with what most of the people are doing. And when you go with what everybody is doing, you fall short of the mark of leadership. Even when I have opportunity to talk to people about strategy, I usually tell them that if you benchmark 8, you become the 9th. If you want to take lead, then you must turn the benchmark information into something that you can use to go to the next level, not to look for the average.
I'll keep that with me. When you benchmark 8, you become 9. Okay, nice.
It's interesting. But also, one of the things that technology has done is that they have made the world a global village.
Yes.
So we are being called upon to define ethics using global standards.
Right.
Yet, we have our local, homegrown standards of what we consider to be ethical and what we consider
But
not to be
they're
ethical.
global ethical standards, and I think they cut across.
Exactly. And the dilemma remains something that you still have to look at. Are we training our younger professionals to be global citizens? You know, there's all that discussion of being globally integrated but locally responsive. Globally integrated, locally responsive. Being local, not global. Because at the end of the day, the application of all the knowledge of all the things that you do, it happens in a context that is judging you in terms of all the stakeholders you manage. Be they customers, be they suppliers, be they staff, they pass judgment, and unfortunately. But the lenses they use also have restrictions.
Right.
And now, technology is making the world a global village. And then, if you want to go by how much, the question remains in the room is how much do you want to be globally integrated, but also locally responsive? Because if you don't maintain a good balance, at the end of the day, you lose when it comes to competitiveness, if it's a business, but also as an individual, you lose a sense of reality.
Right.
And then you struggle on what is right.
What is right, because you have lost yourself already.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it depends on who is judging you.
It could be the eighth.
And it becomes whose opinion matters most in judging what is ethical and what is not ethical. Is it the customer? Is it the public? Is it the... You get it. So that whole thing is something that is interesting in management literature. Because the issue is who defines
what?
And then after agreeing on who defines, the issue becomes, does it enjoy the same understanding across time, place, event, jurisdiction? We may be the same organization. It may be acceptable to give a tip in some parts of the world, and in other parts of the world it's considered a what? A bribe.
A bribe.
I've ever had a scenario where people had to call in from the global office, and they're asking how is that happening? Because you are collecting money, somebody has died and you are collecting money.
Yes.
They can't relate with the fact that when somebody dies, you collect money. Why should you collect money? What are you trying to achieve? You get it? But in another jurisdiction, it is okay.
Very okay.
So the issue is to be able to understand that, and also one of the things that I've also, whenever I've had an opportunity to talk to young professionals, because of that, I always tell them that, yes, the global tide will be there, but don't always be too far away from it, but also don't be left behind. The rest is in between for you to judge. Don't be ahead of fashion. Don't be on top. Because if what comes as a trend
might not really
might
be the
not
right
necessarily
thing
rhyme well with the realities that you have
around you.
in terms of the stakeholders you manage on a daily basis.
Yes.
So you have to be careful how and when you pick which trends are taking root globally.
Still about globalization, when you talk global politics, you can, global politics, management, and diversity. The two things are always very, very significant, and that is transparency and accountability. So what role do these play in ethical leadership?
I think transparency and accountability goes back to two things. As a leader, what are you interested with? You are interested with the people, you are interested with information, you are interested with the equipment and assets and all that. So when we say accountability, it means that at the end of the day, if I have 16 coins and I return 16, am I accountable? I'm not accountable if I return 14. Accountability is understood in the context of the whole idea of the business, the whole idea of the targets that we're trying to achieve, of the whole organization. What is it that we're trying to achieve?
Right.
And then we set targets. And then after setting targets, we say X, Y, and Z are accountable. Then we say whereas so and so is accountable, so and so will be responsible, or so and so will be consulted. So you have to have a framework. Accountability happens in a framework. A framework in which adults, then we are able to say, okay, you were accountable. Accountability also means that the buck stops with you, which means you make the final decisions.
Yes.
And we may never be in a situation, usually in life we make satisfactory decisions. You may never be able to make a decision when you have all of the information that you have to make that decision. But accountability requires that you still must make the decision.
Right. Wow. Interesting. Now, as we begin to come to the end of our conversation, I feel like we've just started. What role, beg your pardon, we did speak about young professionals, and briefly I would want you to comment, just briefly, the role of mentorship. Because oftentimes when you meet young professionals, they're very passionate about saying, you see, I look up to so-and-so. I have become who I am because of so-and-so. And so what role does mentorship play in shaping ethical leaders?
I think mentorship is I like the question, because mentorship usually is one of those things that are usually misunderstood. And sometimes people equate coaching to mentorship. The two are different. Coaching is trying to fix things that are not happening well, while mentoring takes a longer term perspective.
Right.
You may actually find that your mentor could have been somebody who died a long time ago.
True.
But they lived their life in such a way that it is documented, it can be followed, and all you need to ask in the circumstances that I'm facing today, if Jesus, if Muhammad, if Mahatma Gandhi, if Nelson Mandela was in the circumstances that I'm in now, how would they have handled?
Yeah.
So back to mentorship, I think it is critical. What a mentor does, a mentor is your accountability partner. Is your person who will tell you no. This is something that you should have been done different. And what I usually encourage people is to get mentors. And the mentor doesn't have to be within your organization. A mentor can be somebody who is outside the organization, but somebody who has gone through some of the experiences that we're trying to go through. And they give you the options of how it would. They help you to self-discover.
Exactly.
And the power of self-discovery is that you are able to continue doing what you're supposed to do, even in their absence.
But even do it better.
Or even better.
Yeah.
So that's mentorship.
And it's very key.
Vis-a-vis coaching, which is just about fixing what? Fixing things which are broken.
Right.
That's why you see even the best coaches. You may be a very good coach, but you are coaching people very well, but you are at the time when you're a player, you're not one of the best players.
And let's not talk about coaching,
football.
Right? Football right now. We will get in trouble.
That's true.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give somebody who's going through, who's struggling to make some ethical choices in their leadership journey?
Just picking up from where we are discussing, I think one of the things that you need to do, like I've said, you need somebody who I call an AP, or who we call an AP. An AP is your accountability partner. It's somebody who will tell you that, you know what, I think in the circumstances you ought to have decided differently, but since that is what you decided to do, this is how we get back in line. So somebody who is struggling to make ethical choices must do, first of all, self-introspection. Sometimes you need to first understand yourself. Who am I? What am I trying to become? And at the end of the day, Sometimes the right thing to do is to leave. But that's the most difficult decision. That's why I say you need a mentor. You need somebody close to you. You need somebody who will tell you that, you know what, no, you need to do this differently. But rarely do people have these mentors in their lives.
Rarely do people make introspection. And
also introspection, I say introspection because self-awareness is key.
It's key, yeah.
Who am I? Who am I as a person, first of all, before you even try to understand other people? Self-discovery and self-understanding is the starting point. Then after you've understood yourself, the next stage is how do I relate with other people? So somebody who is struggling with the ethical choices, and usually when we say ethical choices, usually the choices between what is convenient and what is right. And what is right in most cases doesn't come dressed in white. Sometimes what is right comes dressed in black. And you have to ask yourself the hard questions. Sometimes you don't have to make decisions quickly. We tend to want to make decisions quickly because that is what would please the people who are around us. So sometimes you have to go back. But if you don't know who you are, it becomes very, very difficult. Any road will lead you anywhere.
Sure.
And even on that, the interesting fact is that there are a lot of tools, online and otherwise, that help people to discover who they are.
Tools.
So you need to invest in yourself. And one of the things you can do this year is just investing in how do I get to know who I am, such that I'm able to appraise other people correctly, such that I'm able to make the right
decisions,
choices at the right time. Because being able to making choices does not happen in a vacuum. Like I said, the satisficing is about making decisions that are satisfactory in the circumstances. But we are surrounded by so many other things, and the choice of that depends on your understanding. What is the goal? Where am I going? What am I trying to become? And the moment that is clear and you know who you are, the gap in between is all making choices.
Wow. Because
the moment you finish school and you join the world of work, you are now being evaluated on a purely entrepreneurial curriculum, where you must be asking yourself the right questions. You know, when you are still in school, you are rewarded for knowing the right answers. But the moment you cross and now you are outside the gates of school, we evaluate you by asking the right questions. So being able to ask yourself the right questions helps you to make the right choices. Wow. But you cannot ask yourself the right questions if you don't understand who you are, and who you are where you're trying to go. And if it's an organization, if you don't understand where your organization is and where it wants to be in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, then you will make wrong choices, and then anybody who is coming to evaluate you will evaluate you harshly. You won't be judged correctly because they thought you had 4 other routes and you took route X instead of taking route Y.
Wow. Indeed, you need to evaluate yourself. You need to know who you are, what you stand for, what you want to achieve, where do you want to see yourself. You know, these are things I used to be like, what are they for? I know myself, and I want to. But then when you sit down with yourself, I always tell people, sit down with yourself. And this is where introspection comes in. Look at who you are as a person. What defines you? What are your values? What are your core objectives? What would you want to achieve in the next 10 years? And where do you see yourself thereafter? All those questions we need to ask ourselves. And young professionals, don't run away from these questions. They help you answer very, very many questions in life. Now, Ronald Bossa, as we come to the end of our show, if you were to sum up ethical leadership in one key principle, what would it be?
I wouldn't run away from the old adage which says, do the right thing no matter what, and try to focus on doing things that are significant rather than trying to be important. Most people try to be important instead of focusing on doing the right things. Do the right things, do things which are significant, which are impacting other people. The rest of the principles will follow you. Wow. The overarching issue or fact about life is that you should be doing
the right
thing. And you know, your internal compass, your internal geography will always tell you that here you are trying, here you're doing, you'll feel it. And until you have felt it, you will always be below average.
Absolutely. Do the right thing even when no one is watching. I always tell my friends, please, can you do the right thing even when you know you're in darkness? But that right thing will save you a lot of trouble. So Ronald Bosa, thank you very much for your time. I was reading earlier on before this conversation, and a gentleman called Dewey D. Eisenhower says supreme quality of leadership is integrity. And so if you're not very ethical, if you do not have integrity as a core value as a leader, then you're bound to have holes that are poked. We're going to have to look at you with double lenses and question your leadership. And so, Bosa, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for educating us on ethics and integrity. And I hope we can have more of these conversations, because we at Fidelis Leadership Institute, our core value, our backbone indeed is building and creating an ethical mass of leaders that are ethical, that are teachable, that are available, and that are faithful to what they've been called to do. So if you are joining us now, don't worry, you can catch us again. We will share this again for you to watch. But I thank you very much for joining us for the Fast Talks, and of course for making time. We'll catch you again next Thursday for still conversations about Fast Talk and other interesting topics. But allow me alert you that we have the FAT Leadership Fellowship coming up. The applications are open. Please feel free to go to our website at Fidelis Leadership Institute. Let me get that correct. It is Fidelis Leadership Institute /institute.org, and that is where you're going to find all this information about the FAT Leadership Fellowship, the public interest litigation conversation that is going to happen on the 21st, and so much more. Otherwise, I wish you the very best. A very good evening.